The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, we are live. Oh, we better stop music. Oh, guys, this is Tim Destasio. I feel like I got to know you through your comical videos, not the teaching that you do, as I've seen some of that too, but the comical videos that you do on Instagram.
Yeah, I've been making videos since I think 2018, and they never really took off. I was just cataloging stuff that I was coming across in the field. But as soon as I started poking fun of people online, all of a sudden my presence and my I don't know what you call it, followers and engagement just took off. And I was like, oh, well, that's what it takes to get internet famous. You just got to make fun of other people. It's not how I picture myself making an impact on the industry.
Well, if people are saying something that's really stupid, and then your reaction to it when your eyes open, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, my wife tells me that that I don't have a good poker face, and so if something's crazy going on, if we're sitting, um, somewhere where we're supposed to be behaving, and something crazy is going on, my face is going to display it. So I'm not going to be a good poker player, and I'm probably going to show if I'm embarrassed. So yeah, it kind of lends itself well to making videos.
Yeah. All right, guys, if you're in the show, leave us a comment. I've got one here.
Jonathan Ortiz.
Hello,
Hey, Jonathan.
Jonathan. Well, I kind of let you know about one of these questions, and that is, how did you get into the trades? And I said this before because most people don't graduate from high school saying, "Hey, I want to be a plumber. I want to be an HVAC tech." And that was the case for me. I tried to go into college and becoming a mechanical engineer, and I ended up here. So,
Yeah,
how did you get into trades?
I actually graduated college or I graduated high school knowing I would be an HVAC technician. I
Was it in the family or something?
No, no, my dad worked for AT&T as he maintained the old switchgear equipment, from old telephone equipment stuff in Greensboro for 30 years and retired doing that. So he was a little bit blue collar. I mean, he came from a maintenance background. But yeah, so my parents were pretty, they had the foresight enough to see that college was not going to be a good path for a typical person in of my generation, and that's just because everybody was trying to push going to college, getting a degree, and we were already seeing where people were getting into tons of student debt and ended up being baristas. So um, during high school they encouraged me to learn a trade, and I took electronics and I took heating and air in high school. There was a vocational school that offered kind of technical classes just because, again, we're talking about the late 90s. Shop class was already gone in my area. So the only way you were going to learn anything trade related was to go to this vocational school that kind of serviced all the public schools in my area. And I took heating and air and electronics, and I really liked both, but I thought there was probably a better paying future in heating and air than being a VCR repairman. So I like the fact that heating and air encompassed electronics and plumbing and high voltage electrical and mechanical and just all this stuff. So I loved it. So since I was 17 years old, I've been doing heating and air. Graduated high school, got went to get my associate's degree because I was already halfway there. A lot of my college credits came during high school, and so I found a job while I was finishing up in evening, doing evening classes. I was working during the day, doing commercial industrial service. So I started out as an apprentice, didn't know anything. I mean, my dad taught me a little bit about using tools, but certainly not what you needed to change big motors and rig,
Yeah.
big compressors and all that stuff that comes with doing big commercial heavy industrial. So I learned it, and I worked there for 12 years. Started getting into more clean rooms, data centers, process chillers, that more technical stuff, and I loved that. That was a great challenge. But then I decided I wanted to start my own business, and so I went and got licensed. And when I was getting ready to take my license test, I took a bunch of prep classes, and I started learning Manual J, Manual D, and all these design classes. And I got really interested in HVAC design and also how the building reacts to the HVAC system and vice versa. And that got me interested in building science. And I started my own residential business. I stole a couple of commercial and industrial customers from my old company because I did a good job for them, and the guy that replaced me did not. So they called me up one day and said, "We'd like for you to continue servicing our plants." And I did that for 11 or 12 years. And then I sold that business during the pandemic, and then moved here to Southport, North Carolina, which, by the way, was the town that just had a shooting last Saturday night. I didn't know any of the people involved, but yeah, super sad. That's my hometown, or not my hometown, the town that I live in now. But yeah, that's where we live here in coastal North Carolina, and I do HVAC consulting, contractor training, and I make fun of bad players in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Hilariously. I mean, I get a kick out of them. I really do.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I
I
just, like I told you, I've got 1,800 videos out there, and one of these days, one of my old videos is going to show up is going to get roasted by Tim. I see it coming.
I try not to make fun of any of the good players. If you notice, the people that I'm making fun of are people out here trying to sell things that aren't accurate, or people that are trying to take advantage of others that are, you know, they're trying to be sales techs and take advantage of people that don't know any better. And that's who I think we need to push back on in this industry. So
Well,
I'm
let me ask
doing my
you,
part.
if you sold your business, what are you doing now?
Well, my business was never a big business. So when I sold it, and I sold it when I was in my early 40s, I certainly could not retire off of that. But I consider myself semi-retired, so I work part-time. I do a lot of volunteer work in the community. I volunteer my HVAC skills, and I also I teach people the Bible. I'm a Christian and a minister, and I teach people the Bible. So that is what I do with a lot of my time, and then I work part-time doing HVAC consulting local we're at the beach, so all these beach houses have moisture problems. It's not just an HVAC problem. You have to investigate the building envelope, and so I do that kind of testing, blower door testing, thermal imaging. I couple that with HVAC, and I do HVAC design. I do load calcs and full designs for anybody that needs anything from just a simple manual J to a full home design. And I do contractor training. I'm doing those Zoom classes, and I do local contractor training here on Oak Island. So that's what keeps me busy for the few days a week that I do work.
Well, I guess I would say that I'm partially retired myself
Yeah.
because I don't work till 9 o'clock at night
Right.
like many of the guys do. I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
Um, and some days I get home like at 3 o'clock so I can work on videos and stuff. So
Yeah.
I have a very flexible schedule. Let's put it that
Yeah. That's good. I mean, if you're going to be self-employed, you got to have those benefits. And yeah, I see somebody throwing in the four quarters. I love it. If you know, you know.
way. If you only had 4 quarters.
Yeah. So
Yeah, there's some stuff that just came out recently. A certain individual who is now making his money on YouTube, selling some kind of shading thing to go over your.
yeah, yeah, that video's coming. Don't think he has escaped the googly eyes. I got a sticker here somewhere. I ought to get it. The three googly eyes that I put in the comments. That's like the bat signal, man. If you see those in the comments, it's coming. You don't know when, but it's coming.
Oh my word! When I saw that, I just felt like
Yeah, he. I think he peruses Timu and just kind of finds like the weirdest stuff and says, "Yeah, this will work." So
Well, the thing for me, first of all, he's reading surface temperature. And
yeah,
second of all, as soon as the thing turns on, that surface temperature changes.
yeah. And
And,
if you notice, like one of the videos, he's claiming it makes like a 10-degree difference in air temperature.
no.
Dude, there is absolutely you can't do anything other than add a bunch of gas to a unit that's almost out of gas to make that that kind of
Yeah,
temperature change. Like that's a scam there.
that's
And so
insane. And
yeah,
if
he's
he's
got to
getting
pay.
paid to say that, I mean that
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that's a scam.
yeah, yeah. So he's gonna pay one way or the other. He's gonna pay.
Oh, he's got multiples like that. He had one where
Yeah.
you squirting water on the air
Well, I did
conditioner.
that one. I did that one. It was back about probably about a year and a half ago. So
Yeah, I actually had a customer call me out to his house to look at his air conditioner because we have hard water around here. Everything's well water.
yeah, yeah,
And it was just covered in this like cement,
yeah.
white caked all over this
Right.
spiny fin coil, and it had
Yeah.
ruined his air conditioner. And it was
Yep.
already like 25 years old.
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was
Yeah, let's take well water and let's blast your AC unit with water with dissolved rocks in it. And
exactly that's exactly what he did.
so um yeah, it's crazy. We got a couple questions here in the comments. I'm getting attacked by a bug or something here.
Oh, there's lots of stuff going on in the comments.
Yeah.
Looks that HVAC guy is here.
Oh,
Oh, and another thing I wanted to ask you about, because of the people who watch my channel a lot,
yeah.
I want to talk about your state and your advice for people getting a license and wanting to open a business because it's different in every state. In
It is.
Georgia, we have to have 5 years experience working for somebody else and like three
Yeah.
contractors to sign off on three different
Oh wow.
jobs that you did. It's not easy.
Hmm. Well, and I don't think it should be easy. There should be some kind of bar of entry. That way just anybody can't call themselves a competent contractor. But it shouldn't also be unfair. So in North Carolina, you need to have worked under somebody with a license for I think it's 4 years. You can use 2 years if you have 2 years of schooling. So you can have 2,000 hours of
No.
schooling plus 2,000 hours of working under a contractor as an employee. You have to show W-2s, not 1099s.
So in Georgia, we have something like that, except it's you can knock off 6 months if you have a technical diploma.
Yeah, gotcha. So, yeah, I mean, you can't knock off 2,000 hours if you don't have 2,000 hours, but I think there's something in there where you can use some like HVAC technical school, and I don't know what the rules are. By the time I decided to get my license, I already was in it for over 10 years, and so I just got somebody at my company to sign off on it who was licensed,
Hmm.
and then the test is very difficult in North Carolina, and it's designed to trip you up. So they put really hard HVAC load calculation questions that would take like 15 minutes to do at the beginning of the test so that you might trip up and spend all kinds of time trying to get to that answer and then run out of time, which is not cool. Like I'm all for making it difficult and making sure that you weed out people that are not competent, but to use tricks like that to make people fail the test is not cool. The other thing they'll do is they'll switch around units of measurement. So instead of CFM, they'll use like CFH, and they'll put the CFH as answer A, and then CFM is all the way down at the bottom. So if you're not careful, you see CF something, and you go ahead and click A, and then you get it wrong. And then
That's kind
there's
of
a
tricky.
yeah, it is. It's just it's cheap. It's like come on, like there's a way to make this test hard and kind of weed out people that didn't study, that don't know what they're doing, but you don't have to do that. And then there's a business and project management test that is aside from all the code questions and manual J questions. And that, at least it was when I got my license back in 2010, it is 50 questions in 60 minutes on a book that's several hundred pages thick. And so you have to either know the answer by heart or know exactly where in the book to look it up, or else you're not getting it right.
Will
And that one is where people trip up and fail a lot.
is the whole test an open book test?
Now I think you're allowed to bring in your books and you can have them tabbed. But when I took it, you were not allowed to bring in anything. You had to pretty much empty your pockets, strip down to your underwear, and they handed you all the books. They handed you one piece of paper and one pencil. And if you ran out of room on your paper, you had to go up there and request another one. Like, it was ridiculous a few years ago, and I think they eased up on that. It looks like.
Well, in Georgia, oh, I don't know. I don't even remember how many questions it was, but you only had to get 70% of them right. It was an open book test. I went for the unrestricted, which meant it covered boilers and everything else, which we don't work on. I mean, I guess I would if I were in commercial or industrial or something like that.
Yeah.
But the our test was basically how good are you at looking up stuff in the code book?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what the test was.
Yeah.
And I was well prepared. I studied for it. I took a class to prepare me for it. And
Yeah.
so when I went in there, I flew through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of did the same thing. I took a prep class and actually took it twice. They let you come back and take it right before you took the exam, and that's all I did for 6 months of study. So yeah, good question here. Conduit Tech, yes, I do use it. I've been a user and a beta tester for them. Congratulations to them. They just got acquired by Service Titan, which is, to build a company from scratch and within 4 years you're able to sell it for who knows how much to a larger company. Pretty impressive. Great software. Constantly adding features to it. I use it
Conduit
all the
Tech.
time. Yeah, so it's a manual J software that uses your iPad. And what you do is you open up the program and you start scanning your house. You go up and down with your iPad, and it'll scan. It'll do a 3D scan on the house, and then you enter in your R values and your other materials, and yeah, you got you a manual J. And now you can
That is
superimpose.
cool.
Yeah, and now they're starting to do where you can superimpose your like a wall unit for a mini split, so you can show the customer what the mini split's going to look like. You can start drawing in ducts. They are constantly adding features, so it'll be interesting to see what happens once Service Titan completely swallows them up. But for right now, like, it's one of the best software that's come out in a long
Because
time.
for a long time I used Right Soft,
Oh yeah,
and I would have to draw in the house and enter
yep,
dimensions, and then there's so
yep,
much information you got to put in there to get a
yep,
good load calculation.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Load calcs are
overhangs, window height, and
yep.
size, and there's a
Yep.
lot of information that goes into it.
There is, to make it really accurate. It's garbage in, garbage out. Here, at least, they simplify it and they walk you through it, and that's something that I know. Like RightSoft and what's the other one? Elite Software. Both of them, it's not intuitive. Like, where do you go next to go from manual J and then system selection and duct design? You just sort of have to know where, like it. You have to use it and take classes, and you got to know where to click next. It's not intuitive; it doesn't step you through it. Conduit Tech is a lot more intuitive, and it's built for this generation of people that we're used to using iPads. We want to know the iPad to tell us where to go next. So yeah, they're a really cool company. They're also sponsoring my Manual J class that I'm having on October 29th on Zoom. They're my sponsor for that. So yes, they are a good partner for the community.
That's cool. I've never heard of them, so
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear about them.
yeah,
BrightSoft was confusing. It took me a long time to learn how to use it, and then it's time consuming. It takes a
it
long
is.
time.
It is. Yeah, once you get over the hump of learning it, you can get fast at it. Like I use it almost every day, and I can use it in my sleep. But I would never ask or tell somebody, yeah, you should totally use RightSoft from, if you're just getting started. There's another software out there called Quick Model 3D, which is like a 3D load calc and duct design program, and you draw the house in 3D, and it's a little bit more intuitive. I think it could probably get a little bit better, but it's a lot better than what RightSoft is. And younger people it looks like Minecraft, so young people are used to that.
I have never used software for duct design.
Yeah.
I've used it for load calculation, but not
Yep.
for duct design.
Well, you got to have you can rules of thumb for duct design work pretty well. I mean, I'm all for doing the math and using the apps, and I'm not discounting that. But you got to have a really weird setup where you got really long trunks, a lot of turns, weird fittings, where that rule of thumb is no longer valid. It's got to get
Yeah,
really crazy. So just a regular ranch style house, um, your rules of thumb are going to be fine. Put balance and dampers in there, and then just make sure you balance it. The
yeah,
main thing I think where people go wrong is that they start putting in like media filters that are too small. They don't set up their blower speeds. They match a coil up with a furnace that has way too high of a pressure drop, and so you start off without having a lot of airflow, or you start off with using up all of your duct friction before you even run your first duct. So I tell people sort of like a budget. Your coil, the type of fittings that you use coming right off the air handler, your media filter or whatever filter you're using, the things that you have control over, whether to use good quality with a low pressure drop or a bad pressure drop. If you make good decisions there, it's sort of like having a budget. It's like, all right, well, I've saved up enough money because I was frugal at the beginning of the week where I can afford to go out to eat at the end
exactly.
of the week. And so
And
as long as you make good decisions as close to the air handler as you can, then the things farther away from the air handler are pretty much going to take care of themselves.
so what I'm hearing when you say that is don't go buy one of those 3M pleated filters.
Right. Well, if you're going to, then you better design your HVAC system around that kind of pressure drop.
Ugh,
So,
those things are
you know,
horrible. They're not designed for that when people buy them.
no, no, people have no idea. They yank out the 20 by 20, MERV 5 that's in there that only catches, big bugs and small children. And they put in that 3M that catches everything, including air. And then they wonder why their system freezes up.
I, I, I pulled out many of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you're going to go like a really good filter, just get a media filter for the air handler, but don't size it based on just whatever the air handler cabinet is. So if you got like a 20 by 20 air handler cabinet, you don't put a 20 by 20 media filter in there. You base it off the airflow, the pressure
Yeah.
drop, and the technical specs. And I actually did a little bit of research on that a few years ago, and I created a chart for April airs because I sell a lot of those. I like those filters. And I came up with was the pressure drop and the velocity across that filter. And in order to keep those within the tolerances that the manufacturer suggests, if you have a 3-ton unit, the smallest filter you can put in is a 20 by 25. If you have anything bigger than a 3-ton, technically you should either be splitting that air into two filters or get like an even bigger media filter, like one of those 28 by 32s or something huge like that, or else you're asking that filter to do something that it wasn't designed to do.
Well, what do you think about the new, like the Sear 2 and Sear 3, where they're asking the air handlers to be designed for higher static pressure so that maybe these motors won't fail so often?
Yeah, I'm glad they're doing it because when you start looking at when they rate a unit at 3 tons and 15 SEER, and you look like how that was actually tested, it was tested with hardly any ductwork on it before, and the temperature of air coming in there was 80 degrees and around 60% relative humidity. So nobody keeps their house at that. But if you're going to test an AC at that set of conditions, so no ductwork hardly, and at 80, 60, there's plenty of heat for that unit to remove. It's like squeezing an orange, a nice full ripe orange. You don't have to squeeze that hard, and all kinds of juice comes out. But we're not putting those units in that kind of house. We're putting it with ductwork, and we're asking that unit to not maintain 80-60, but to maintain around 72, 75 degrees and 50% humidity. And now that 3-ton unit is actually more like a 2.2-ton unit. But they're selling it as a 3-ton unit. That 15 SEER out in the field is actually operating a 13 SEER. So SEER 2 equalized everything. You're now having to put zero point 0.5 inches static pressure when you test it at the factory. At least that. Now they're still testing at 80-60. So your a 3-ton unit is never really a 3-ton unit out in the field. It's always derated a little bit. But at least you have you got some ductwork
Tested
on
with
it.
some static pressure.
Yeah. So, and it was crazy. Like the blowers, I was a Carrier Bryant dealer in my last business, and Carrier math was take the tonnage and knock at least half a ton off of it, and that's about what you were going to get out of it. And then the blowers, you would have like if you had a 3-ton air handler, so you're looking for 400 CFM per ton, 1,200 CFMs out of that 3-ton air handler. It only made 1,200 CFMs at like zero point 0.2 inches static. Like anything in normal static pressure, it was putting out like 1,000 CFM. So that knocked your capacity down. So
Yeah.
they were sort of getting away with calling their units what they were because they were able to game the system. And
It kind of sounds like the Volkswagen cheating
yeah,
scandal.
yeah, yeah.
I see you looking at the comments. Is there something that piqued your interest?
That last comment from Ryan about air purifiers. If you want to go there, we can go there.
Actually, about electric air purifier that change the air chemistry versus just using a large. Well, so I've got some customers who use these ionizing air purifiers, and they love them.
Yeah.
I don't have one. I installed a UV light just to install one in my house,
Yep. Yep.
but I don't know if they actually do anything. To tell you the truth, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm pretty passionate about this. My motto is take things out of the air instead of adding chemistry to the air. And so these purifiers, ionization, oxidation, sometimes even just UV lights, we are playing chemistry. And I'm not a chemist, and I don't think you're a chemist, and most HVAC techs are not chemists. But we're sort of taking that on our shoulders when we put one of those in. Now they work a lot of times. The technology that is behind them is like, it works. It's proven. The problem that I have with them is that one, they're how effective they are sometimes is very much embellished by the manufacturer because there is no regulating body that keeps them in check. Like when a pharmaceutical company comes out with a new medicine, their commercial has to be approved by the FDA. There is no FDA for indoor air quality products. So they could say whatever they want. They could say, yes, this device here removed all this chemistry out of the air. But when they tested it in a shoebox. So of course you got this giant UV light going wah 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 in like a tiny little shoebox. Of course, it's going to like take care of what little pollutants are in that shoebox. Now let's put it in the house. Let's put it in a house with a bunch of cat piss in there. Let's put it in a house where there's smoke
2000
and
CFM, yeah.
yeah, and then burn a bunch of candles and incense, and let's throw some chemistry at it. And now all of a sudden, we don't know what chemical reactions are taking place. So anything with ionization, bipolar ionization, when you see ionization, and they try to say, well, that's just like how after a thunderstorm the air feels clean. The difference is a thunderstorm also washes away a lot of contaminants with water. We're not hosing down our house every time one of those ionizers come on. The other problem with that is that all ionizers, you cannot have ionization without creating some kind of ozone. That smell that you smell after a thunderstorm is ozone. The thing is, you're outside; it's diluted. But now we're going to lock that ionization, that ozone, into a small house with who knows what else that can react to it. So
Yeah,
that's ionization.
some people can smell that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And then the other technology is oxidation. So anything that uses photocatalytic oxidation, if your device has APCO, PCO, in there. That's photocatalytic oxidation. And what we're doing is we're shining UV light against a catalyst. It's like titanium or another metal, and we're adding an oxygen molecule to the chemistry in the air. And that sounds great because it can render a lot of things inert. The problem is we also create a very unstable molecule that can very easily bond with something else and create things like formaldehyde. So if you're putting one of these things into an environment that has clean air already, you're probably good. But if you're putting it in an environment that already has a lot of chemistry in the air, it doesn't take that much for that oxidation to turn something that was more or less harmless into something that's really harmful. And so, because we don't have control over that, my four pillars of indoor air quality is filtration, ventilation. So let's bring in outside air and dilute the bad stuff. Humidity control and source control. So let's get rid of the bad chemicals in the house. Let's, if there's a dead raccoon in the crawl space, let's remove the raccoon. Let's just not put something in there to mask the smell. Dilution is the solution. Yeah, in a lot of cases, that's the case. So if you take care of the four pillars of indoor air quality first, what you find is that you usually don't need anything else. But if you do, like I've sold, some of those devices before, but it's only as a cherry on top, only after implementing those four pillars of indoor air quality. Sure, I'll throw one in there because I feel relatively safe that there's not a lot of chemistry in the air that's going to react to it.
Well, I'm going to tell you with the UV light, the only thing that I have seen that it actually does, it can help keep a drain pan clean.
Yeah, I
That's the
mean,
only thing I know that it can do.
they do what they do very well, and but if you get into a certain wavelength of UV light, it'll start eating away at plastics. I mean, I've seen it completely disintegrate flex duct before, a drain pan, wiring, and just
Um,
because that bulb is putting out a certain wavelength in nanometers today, what happens is that bulb gets a little bit older. Does that wavelength change? Light bulbs change their hue as they get older. What's to say that UV light won't do it also as it gets older?
well, that's why most drain pans are black now because the white ones would just completely disintegrate.
Yep. Yeah. So, and of course, we got someone in the comment, Brett, asking me what I think about a certain sales guru, and I'm not going there. I'm not going there publicly.
They must know what you
They're
think
trying
about
to get
this
me fired
already.
up, and I'm not falling for it. If you want to know what I think about that, you just need to follow my content.
Well, let's click on another one here.
Yeah.
Why is EPA insisting on using a new refrigerant can be prone to fraction? Uh-oh.
Yeah. This is nothing new. I mean,
He's talking about 454.
well, yeah. What he's talking about is blends. So fractionation is when you have two or more different refrigerants that are blended together to create the refrigerant that you want.
Yeah, but
They
not all of them have this tendency. Like
not
410, it
all of them.
doesn't really have this tendency.
Well, when it leaked out at different rates, the two refrigerants were very similar, so it didn't change the performance of it. That's called glide.
Yeah.
And there are like 407C had a lot of glide. If you guys ever use Blue On, that Blue On was an awesome drop in for R22. Performed, you could gain a half a seer on an R22 unit just by taking out all the R22 and putting in Blue On. Problem is, Blue On was a very azeotropic refrigerant, which means that it is a blend, and the glide was very, very high on it. So if it leaked out at different rates, you had some kind of concoction in there, and then it would
The
not
bubble
perform
and
very
dew
well.
points were too far
Yeah,
apart. Is that what you're saying?
exactly. Bubble and dew points are too far apart. When you look at R410A, the bubble and dew points are very close, and a little bit of beer can cold, and you can get her up and going. But this some of these new with the high glide, the new refrigerants, you can't do that. And
Well, well, when I read that, I'm thinking about 454. If it sits for a long time in a cert without being used, it can fractionate inside the bottle or inside the piece of equipment and cause it to pump out all the oil. There's all kind of we're having TXV problems. We're having compressors fail on startup on some of
Hmm.
these systems, and part of the blame is being put on fractionation because it's sitting for so long in it.
I have not heard of that. Yeah, I'd be interested to see like what. Of course, everyone's going to be protecting their own rear ends when it comes to that. But here's the thing. I mean, we've had fractionation in refrigerants. We've had blends for many years, and we haven't had those kind of problems. So I'm wondering whether it's also a quality control issue with compressors and the way they're building stuff now so cheap, which is also
Yeah.
a contributor. I don't know. I would have to look that up. I can't speak about that.
One of the theories going, I think Ty Brannaman is the one who's been my reference on this, but one
Oh
of
yeah,
the theories going around is that that's part of the reason that the 454 has been so hard to get your hands on because it's been fractionating in the bottles and they know this and they
mm.
can't let it sit for very long. I mean, that's just a conspiracy theory that's out, but it might be true.
Yeah. I could speak on that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth doing research and putting it to bed one way or the other for sure. So. Um, Let's see. Now Ryan's got a question here. Upgrade my system that's in an unconditioned attic. Should I move my installation to my roof and make the attic semi-conditioned, or just leave as is? So you're talking about encapsulating an attic.
Foam in the attic. There's some pros and cons to that.
Yeah, there is. What do you think about it?
Um, it can drop the temperature of the attic space without conditioned air down to like 80 degrees. So it's almost like a conditioned space in the heat of summer,
Yeah.
but moisture can get behind that foam
Yeah.
and you don't know it until the top of your roof is rotten.
Yeah. Right.
That's the
Yeah.
problem. You just got to know that before you make that decision.
Yeah. So two types of spray foam. There's closed cell and open cell. What you're talking about is more prominent in closed cell. We see a lot of closed cell spray foam here. That's like in the way you tell the difference is the spray foam spongy or is it hard? If it's hard, it's closed cell, and it becomes very impermeable there, where water vapor can get trapped between that spray foam and the roof deck, and then it just sits there and rots it away. That is less likely to happen with open cell spray foam because that open cell spray foam can actually breathe a little bit. It is a pretty good air seal, but it does allow water vapor to kind of go in and out. And so, as long as you're keeping the attic space dry, then you're giving that, water vapor wants to go from more humid to less humid. So, if there is moisture up there in the roof deck, as long as it's less humid in your attic, your water vapor will go into your attic. And hopefully, you've got something like a dehumidifier in there that's going to take that water vapor and remove it out of the air. I'm all for encapsulated attics. I think you got to be really careful spray foaming. If you get the mixture wrong, if it's not applied correctly, it can create VOCs. Those VOCs will get pulled into a coil and it'll eat away at the coil. That's form of carry corrosion, and that's why we have a lot of coil leaks. So it has to be done right. I monitor the VOCs in my attic, and I have not seen any readings there. And I have open cell. And my attic is very dry. It's the same temperature as the rest of my house. I think there's a lot of advantages to getting the ductwork and the unit out of the unconditioned space. It reduces your heat load,
Hmm.
and it also helps to seal some of the leaks in your house. If you can seal the lid of the house, then the draft effect, the stack effect of the house gets taken away because you. It's sort of like if you're trying to run a furnace and you seal the vent cap up on the roof. If you seal that off, how well does that furnace vent anymore? Not very well, right? Well, your house is sort of like a chimney, and so if you can seal the top, then that stack effect, it can't go from the top. Now it's trying to do it from the sides, and it's less pronounced. And so I like the advantages of it, but if it's not done right, then you now created a larger problem that you were trying to solve.
Well, I want to ask you some questions that aren't so serious.
Okay, all right, let's do it.
Um, Being in residential, I see some crazy stuff in some houses sometimes.
Yeah.
What's the craziest thing that you may have seen in somebody's house?
Oh man. Um, in somebody's house. Now I've got a lot of crazy stories from commercial industrial, but in someone's house, um, we were in a crawl space, and it was sort of like one of those crawl spaces you can walk into for a little bit, and then it gets tight on the other side. And somebody had put this really scary looking baby doll, like out of a horror movie, like the eyeballs were ripped out of it. And like this plastic baby doll was like hanging from its neck in the rafters of this crawl space. And when I walked in there, it just scared, like it just startled me. And my the guy that I was working with, he was like, "Oh my god!" So we took it, and that became like we started scaring other people with it. We would put it under houses. We put it in our storage building when I was before I got a shop. I just had a storage building, and all my guys had a key to it. And we put it in there so as soon as they would open up the storage building door, the baby doll would drop from the ceiling, and it was this dirty, disheveled. The hair was pulled out, the eyes were out. It was like this, yeah. And so that was something. I don't know, man. I probably we'd have to get to talking. I'm sure some other things would come to mind, but I've also seen some pretty crazy stuff doing commercial and industrial. So
Like
I'll
what?
tell I'll tell one of those stories. So I worked for a company that built school buses, and I'm not going to name the company, but most of the school buses in the United States are built by this company. They're based out of North Carolina, and they had their whole manufacturing plant. I took care of them ever since I got into air conditioning my first summer, and they had a process where they would hang all their parts, their fenders, all the parts that needed to get primer. They would hang them on this conveyor line on hangers, and they would pass through a spray booth. And all that spray booth did was spray primer, powder coated primer, on those parts. And the air conditioning unit, the worst design in the world. So the air conditioning unit return was like this giant 20-ton train unit, and the return was right above the spray booth. So all it did was just suck paint. You could change the filters every day. It wasn't enough. And so the condensate drain from this unit, the condensate drain was constantly getting stopped up. Like their maintenance guys were just every day trying to blow out the drain because it was just paint. Paint got on the coil. I'm washing the coil with like almost straight up like acidic coil cleaner, and to the point where the coil failed. Like the fins separated from the tubes after
My
about 15
word.
years of doing that. But anyway, so the condensate that came off of this unit was jet black. It was like paint coming off this unit. And so it drained outside in the back of the plant, and it went down to this creek. And so the EPA started cracking down on stuff. And the rumor was, now I'm not going to say this is true, but it makes for a funny joke. The rumor was like wherever that creek drained down to was a pond. And the EPA kept finding ducks that were dying in the pond. And
Really?
so
Is this
they
real?
this is the rumor, all right? But it makes for a funny story that the EPA was finding ducks that were dying, and so they started, finding this company. They were like, "Look, you got to do something about this paint that's getting in the creek." And so it was cheaper for the company to buy new ducks and put them in the pond than it was to fix the problem. So
Oh no.
that was a rumor that was being spread around maintenance, but I will say this: that the condensate problem never got fixed, and so if there were ducks in that pond, those ducks were probably dying. So you do the math. But yeah, it was crazy doing industrial heating and air. You run into all kinds of stuff that is not supposed to happen, but because it's tied to a process that makes hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a year, they're going to let a lot slide to keep it going. It's all about keeping it going.
We used to have a Cooper Tire here, and I worked at the Cooper Tire because I worked at the company that serviced the air conditioners for Cooper Tire.
Yeah,
And they had this one room where they take this black gummy dust and they form it into the rubber. But before they do
yeah,
that, it's in these great big old boxes and bags as this gummy balls of
yeah,
dust.
yeah,
And I went up there the first time and the filters were completely black. The coil is completely black.
yeah,
Um, so I went back out to my vehicle and I got a respirator
yeah,
I start walking up the stairs to go up to it, and they stopped me and they said, "No, no, no, you can't wear that up here." I'm like, "Wait a minute! I've just seen the filters from up there. I'm gonna
Yeah.
wear this."
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let me go work on it with a respirator on.
Why?
I
Wow.
left. I called my boss.
Yeah.
I said, "I'm not going to work on
Yeah.
this without some kind of respirator." And they were
Yeah.
like, "Fine, they'll send somebody else out there who will,"
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
that was
That's
crazy.
it. Yeah. I could see that. There was this one manufacturing plant in another small town right outside of Greensboro, and they made the seat belts and the airbags. The material that you sort of that nylon material that they make airbags, I think life vests, sort of that really tough nylon material. And the process used a chemical called toluene. Toluene, by the way, is one of the byproducts that could happen if you use one of those air purifiers. But toluene, in its raw form, is more explosive than like jet fuel. And there was all these windsocks on top of the building. And I just one time asked the maintenance guy, I was like, "What's the deal with all the windsocks?" He says, "If the fire alarm ever goes off in this building, you go outside and you look at that windsock and you run in the opposite direction as fast as you can." And they said like if that plant ever went up, like it would just take the whole town with it. But
Oh,
it's
that's
just
terrible.
that's the stuff that you're dealing with, you know. And one time, like there was another company, it wasn't ours, thank goodness. They were welding. They did not pull a hot work permit, and they set off the smoke alarms because they were welding in the plant. And man, they got run out of there so quick, you know. But that's
I'll tell you one thing. My video picked up one time.
yeah,
I'm working under a house on an air handler. It's something where I could at least get on my knees and
yeah,
kind of stand up, sort of on my knees. It wasn't
hmm
really low. I didn't notice anything out of the place. I go back and I'm editing my video when I get home, and there's a dead cat right next to me, and I didn't even see it. And I'm thinking,
wow,
how did I miss that?
yeah,
Somebody commented about it, and I went back and looked in the video, and sure enough, I mean, it was like 7 feet away from me. It was right there. My light was shining right on it, and I just didn't see it.
man. I've crawled past so many snakes in a crawl space and didn't even realize it, and then the next guy is crawling right behind me and finds the snake, and I'm like, I don't react well when I come across a snake and I'm not expecting it. Like I won't say I'm afraid of snakes, but like if I had to handle one, I would, but I'm very timid around them, I guess, and yeah, and fortunately it was like a black snake, so like it's not gonna hurt you. But just to know that I was like that when I'm crawling there, there's like a coiled up black snake like right there as we're crawling under ductwork, and I didn't even notice it, and he didn't care about me, and yeah, that was
You
you
know,
run into that stuff, man. You're so concentrating on looking ahead. You got a headlamp, all you can see is straight ahead, and sometimes I choose not to know
you know,
what's under there.
one of my first HVAC jobs down here in South Georgia, I was sent out of town. I worked in Dawson, and I'm sent all the way down to South Albany. It was a long drive.
Hmm.
It's about an hour to get to this call, and I had to run a drain on a new install. And it was going to go through the floor and then through the crawl space and out through one of these little vents. I got the drain run completely to the vent. All I had to do was run this last little piece outside the crawl space. And
Yeah,
when I crawled under the house, I saw a snake. And I couldn't tell what kind it was. It was brief.
yeah,
And it was kind of crawling away from me, but it spooked me because I didn't know what kind
yeah,
it was.
yeah,
And I told the homeowner, I said, "Look, I'm almost done, but there's a snake down there. All you got to do is run this drain just 6 inches out this little vent, but I ain't going down there. I'm sorry." And he was okay with it. He said, "Okay, I'll finish that little bit." So I left. I mean, the
yeah,
thing was, I didn't know if it was. something bad or not. I mean, I'm okay with good snakes, but I couldn't tell what it was.
Right.
It
Right.
had a pattern on its back, so I was
Yeah.
being very cautious.
Yeah. Yeah. We have, like you guys, we've got copperheads here, and that's probably the most common snake that you're going to find. And I tell you what, man, like when you cut the head off those things, that head is still trying to bite you, and that is freaky. Like you cut the head off of a snake for a few minutes, that snake is still alive, and its body that's separated from the head is also still moving, and that's not cool. All right, it's not supposed to do that.
Oh man.
But yeah, we
Yep.
I've got a there was a guy that I worked with a lot when I did commercial industrial, and I still keep up with him. And we talk about some of the old stuff that we used to get into, and there was a couple things. So you guys need to understand. Like I am an idiot. Like I make mistakes all the time, and I've got some real doozies of stories I can tell when I made mistakes. And one of them was I never got any training on like gas heat and combustion. We just were sent to go work on stuff. And so you're just trying to get something to run, get something to light. And we had these unit heaters and they wouldn't light. And I figured out what the problem was. It was the pressure switch wasn't making. And of course the inducer was running on it, but the pressure switch wasn't making. I said, "Okay, well I got a bad pressure switch." So I went and replaced it, and I got a one like a universal one that was adjustable, and it wasn't making. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to keep adjusting it till it does, till it fires. Like, by golly, I'm going to get this thing running. And I did. Got it running. It was in a warehouse. Went home. The next day, my boss says, Tim, all them people there in that plant, they all had to go home yesterday with headaches. Can you run back out there and see what's going on? So me and my buddy David, we went back out there, and I don't know why, like I got it running, like I didn't know anything about venting, drafting, combustion, anything. And he had a little bit more experience in that stuff than I did, and the vent pipe, you had to get a scissors lift to get to it. So he goes up there, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And he comes, I hear the scissor lift go up and then almost immediately come back down. And he says, "Tim, come here." He's like, "I know what the problem is." I said, "What?" And so I get up in the lift, and we go up, and just that entire vent pipe was just covered in birds' nests. And I felt so, I mean, there was like dead birds in there. Like we had to reach in there and start scooping it out. And I felt like such an idiot, but I didn't know any better. And so I had to get educated on that stuff. And the lesson there is that, we get sent to work on stuff all the time that we don't know anything about. But when it comes to combustion and certain things about safety, like it's on us. If our boss isn't going to give us that education, we have to get it ourselves some other way. And it's
Same
never been
thing.
easier now with YouTube. We didn't have that back in the day.
Well, same thing. That's a lot of how I learned. Just,
Yeah.
I'll give you a similar example. I was working in
By
a
the way,
gym.
hey Chris, I see HVACR videos in here. Chris Stevens. Hey Chris. Sorry, go ahead, man.
I was working in a gymnasium, and they had these hanging gas heaters way up on the roof,
Yeah.
and we were sent there to go light the pilot. We didn't have a scissor lift. We had this like 24-foot extension ladder from the floor, all extended all the way up to go light a pilot on these things.
What were you leaning it on, the bar joist or the gas line?
On the heater itself.
Oh my god.
And in all of them, there were four of them. All four of them, when we go to light the pilot, it would explode. You'd make this big boom.
Yeah.
So I told my boss, I said, I think we need to replace these gas valves because they're leaking gas when there's no pilot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I got somebody to come help me replace these gas valves, and he saw how high they were up, and he was like, "Look, I ain't working on these things without a scissor lift. I ain't trying
Yeah. Yeah.
to go up there." But yeah, but when I said that, one of the other technicians says, "Oh, it's like that every year,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, "I don't think it's supposed to do that."
Yeah. Yeah. You see that. They used to send me to go around and light a bunch of warehouse heaters when I was a young tech, and yeah, the scissors lift was nice. We rarely had one, so either I had one of those warehouse ladders, like you see them going around Home Depot, where they're stocking the upper shelf, and that was never high enough. So, like, you're standing on a 5 gallon bucket on top of that little platform ladder that rolls,
Yeah.
or they would their lift was the forklift. They would put a pallet on there, and then I would stand on the pallet and surf the pallet while they raised me up to the unit. No guardrails, no
Yeah.
harness, nothing. Just, I mean,
Been
the
there.
sketchy stuff that we did back in the day that
Oh
was
man.
so not legit. But I thought I killed a parrot one time at a hair salon. This is another story. So I was doing a PM on a little hair salon. I was in a strip mall, and the lady had this parrot, and right there by the air return. And so I went in there and I did the PM. I went down there and I noticed that the return grill was dirty. And I'm trying to be a good technician. I changed the filter. Man, that return grill is really dirty. I can't leave it like that. Let me go grab the shop vac. So I go down there and I had one of those kits where like you put a shop vac attachment on like a 5 gallon bucket and then you plug it in. And so I forgot to put, where I'm going with this. I forgot to put the filter in the shop vac because the last time I used it as a wet vac to clean out a drain. So I forgot to put the filter in there, and I'm holding the 5 gallon bucket with one hand, and I got the little hose in there, and I'm going back and forth, and it's running, and it's discharging out the back, and I have no idea what's going on back behind there, and that there was no filter in there. I'm looking straight ahead, cleaning that return grill. Well, no filter, all that stuff was blowing directly on the little parrot that she kept in a cage right there. And so finally, she tugs on my pant leg because I'm up on the ladder. She's like, "Sir, you're making a mess." And I look down there, and that poor parrot, he was not brightly colored anymore. He was just soot, covered in soot. And the poor guy, he kind of goes, and so the next time I went to the PM, we did PMs quarterly there. I go back there 3 months later, and the parrot's gone. And I said, "Oh my god, I killed the parrot!" So I almost was like, "Ma'am, I'm almost afraid to ask, but what happened to the parrot?" She says, "Oh no, the health department made me get rid of them because they say I can't have an animal in here in a hair salon." So she said,
Ah,
"I keep him at home now." But man, that poor parrot, he was not a brightly colored parrot anymore. He was just like solid gray.
that's funny. That's funny. About the only thing comparable to that was vacuuming out a drain pan in the middle of a bank full of people, and I dropped my vacuum and water just.
Yeah,
Uh, it was
I
just
was.
they kind of latch on the sides, and I'm picking it up, doing like
Yeah,
this over a drop ceiling, and
yeah.
it
Oh
fell.
my god. Yeah. I had a shop vac with loose latches before, and I learned the hard way like that too. But before, back in the day, I didn't carry a shop vac in my truck. We never had the battery ones until recently, and even the 5 gallon bucket ones were pretty recent. Like before, if you had a shop vac, you had this giant thing that just took up all the space in the back of your van. So I was on call, and I went to like an office like Friday at 4:30, and I just wanted to get out of there, and the drain line was stopped up and the drain pan was full, but the drain pan didn't have a drain on it. And so I got the drain line unstopped, so it started flowing, but the drain pan was still full, and the float switch was tripped, so I had to get that going. And so I didn't have a shop vac. I'm like, God, what am I going to do? And finally, I was like, I'm going to siphon this water out of this pan into a bucket. I had tubing, and I had a bucket, and I siphoned the water out of that pan and did not really appreciate how dirty that water is. That's how bad I wanted to go home. And that snot that like comes out of the drain, that was in there, and
Did it get in your mouth?
oh yeah, I mean you got to get a siphon going. And it got in my
Oh,
mouth, and I panicked, and I accidentally swallowed it. Like I didn't even spit it out. I panicked. So I went straight on the way home. I went straight to the liquor store. I got like the cheapest whiskey I could. I said, whatever I just ingested, I'm gonna go home and
dang,
I'm
you
gonna
could have
kill
got like Legionnaire's disease or something from that.
it. Who knows? Whatever don't kill you makes you stronger.
Oh my word!
stupidity back in the day because I didn't know any better. But I'm still here, you know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've done many of things that I've wondered. A lot of it involving electricity. That is a wonder. I one time right in front of a customer, I had a disconnect um, pull apart when I tried to pull the disconnect out,
No. Yeah.
and I reached up with my other hand to try to stop it. And when I did, I made a power arc between the two legs of 240 volts with my hand.
Oh no. Oh,
Oh,
that hurt. That burnt. I'm
that
sure.
hurt. That really hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. I got hit with some 460, and it was one of those things. Same thing. I went leg to leg with my hand, and it. I mean, you talk about just your whole arm aches after that, and I kind of it shook me up because like, good God, I could have died right there. And so I was working the rest of the day, and as the day progressed, I started feeling hotter and hotter, and I actually ran a fever that night, and then eventually just a fever went away. So it's like what however my body reacted to that. I ran a fever, like my body was like, I don't know, we got to run a fever to kill whatever the heck you just did. And then I got over it, but I don't know. It's either that or I was like a capacitor and I stored so much energy in my body. So I
Yeah.
had to slowly
That
slowly
460 is scary. That's
yeah,
scary.
man. Yeah. So we had a guy that he was a residential guy, and he used to carry around this little Radio Shack meter. It fit in your shirt pocket on one of those uniform shirts that had the shirt pockets in them, and he would always carry a meter, this tiny little Radio Shack meter with like little leads in his shirt pocket. It was just the dumbest thing, but he would use it all the time in residential. He would just get out there and troubleshoot stuff. He always had it in his shirt pocket. He put that thing on 460. He got hired at our company, and they sent him on a job 460, commercial industrial, and he had never put, and that meter was not rated for anything more than probably 110 volts. And as soon as he put that on there, the whole thing just blew up. It went to 1,000 pieces. It's
Did you
like,
see it?
no, I saw the remnants. I didn't see it blow up. I saw him bring the remnants of it back to the shop, and it looked like somebody had just dropped it off a 10-story building. And he had like scuffs on his face where he caught some shrapnel. Like it was bad.
Oh,
So yeah, we got all kinds of good war stories we can tell forever. But
yeah. Well, I enjoy the war stories. Well,
yeah,
Tim, it's been about an hour, so I'm going to go ahead
yeah,
and
okay.
bring it to an end. I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
I enjoy your material on Instagram. I just didn't know you were that smart.
I don't know if that's the term. I mean, over the last half hour, I've told like 3 or 4 really dumb things that I've done stories
Oh,
about.
we've all done them. We've all done them. If you've
Yeah,
worked in this field for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or more, you've
yeah.
got some stories to tell.
If you don't, you haven't done anything. So
That's
that's for
about
sure.
right. Well,
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go ahead and end it. Stick around for just a second and
Yep. Okay.
go ahead and end it here.
All right.